Welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. Now, this program is designed to help you better understand the budget process on various levels, whether it's a town department, a municipal budget, or even how the state provides funding to a community. Now, the mission of the show is to sit down with some of the local stakeholders and get their insight on the town's financial picture, maybe gain some perspective into their independent process when it comes to putting together a budget. Today's guest is Fire Chief for the town of Hanson, Mr. Jerry Thompson.
How you doing, Kevin?
Chief, how are we doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. You're our first department head. And I think the first thing I got to ask you is what made you want to climb the ranks in the fire service and become fire chief?
That's a good question. I became a call firefighter back in 1989 and then full-time in 93. And then once I got on the department, I was fortunate enough to get promoted to the rank of lieutenant. And then after a period of time, my main goal was to become the department head or the fire chief to be able to increase our staffing and put a plan in place for our equipment. So just to make the department better and be able to give us a better service to the people in Hanson and serve their needs. And it's a great honor to be able to be the fire chief in the town you grew up in.
And it's worth noting is that the next generation, you actually have a son who is working here locally, no?
Yeah, he's a Whitman firefighter. He was on my call fire department for a while, but now he's a Whitman firefighter.
Maybe someday he'll be a chief?
Maybe.
What was the process like when you had to put together your first budget?
My first budget, obviously the chief that was leaving gave me some input and we reviewed some things, but it was tough. The first one was tough. And getting used to dealing with all the different, the finance committee and then the selectmen and the town administrator. So it was difficult, but with a lot of help from other department heads in town, I got through it.
So did you have a chance to sit down and compare some of the other departments' budgets and how they put their budget together and what their mindset was, whether it was incidentals, salaries to, replacing certain things in the department? Yeah,
they were very helpful, and I did have some time to look how they did it, and not everybody does it the same way, so I could pick and choose what I felt would work for our department.
So here we are. How many years have you been the chief?
I'm in my 12th year.
Wow. So here we are 12 years later. What has it been like putting the fiscal 2020 budget together?
I'm not going to say it's easy, but for me, the budget process is all year long. On July 1st, when we get our new funds, I immediately have the budget for that year, and I'm immediately looking at any new expenses and comparing to see what I requested, if it was sufficient. So it's an all-year process for me, but putting the one for this July 1st coming up, I'm not going to say it was easy, but it went a lot smoother than my first one.
Okay, it's good. Definitely good to know. What is the process like to try to balance between making sure you have enough for staffing and salaries to always being mindful as to what you have for equipment and apparatus and needing to replace it, upgrade it, or even again you have firefighters who they need certain things to be able to go in and successfully fight a fire or respond to a call?
It can be difficult. One of the big things that I felt was important was to get our staffing. We had 4 people on duty, but we would drop down to 2, like if somebody took a vacation. And our trend in our department is we have simultaneous calls 20% of the time. So we count on people to come back on callback when we have multiple calls. But where they're so quick, it was important for me to get the staffing up, but basically, I just review everything and look at what we need. And obviously, it also depends on the direction you get from the town. It depends what type of financial situation and what type of projection that they have on what you can ask for or what they may put limitations on.
What's that like having to sit through a town meeting? Now, I'm not necessarily privy to how Hanson does it, but I've sat through my share of town meetings. Some towns, they do, example, Whitman will do, when they get to Article 2, which is the budget for that year, it's all the line items, and anybody who might want to ask questions, the town moderator will go, okay, line item 1 through 25, anybody have any questions? Of course, you have folks from the audience shouting out different numbers, 3, 15, and then he'll do 25 at a time.
Right.
They do the same thing in Hanson?
In Hanson, we do one line at a time. So he'll say line 1, And if nobody has any questions, we'll accept it, and they'll go through each line. It can be a little nerve-wracking to see if someone's going to question you, but obviously, as working for the community, everything that we ask or request, you need to be able to justify.
And how is it in regards to making sure that when you get up there, that your body language and how you explain it, you're doing it in an understanding manner and not going like, oh, really, again this year? How do you maintain your focus, but understand that the folks want to know where the money's going?
I think that you just have to be truthful all the time and sincere and let them know how you feel, because my job is to provide a service to them, and hopefully they see where I'm coming from. But again, sometimes financial constraints get in the way of that.
Do you think that communities in general have an understanding and realize what the importance of public safety, whether it's police or fire, that they understand it and know that there are expenses to it?
I do. I do think that. I also think that every department in our community is important. They all play a vital role. I don't think anyone is more important than another. But I do think that. I just think that sometimes people think that, it's a cost. But unfortunately, it's just the way it is. We provide a service. We're kind of like an insurance company. We're there if you need us.
When it comes to being able to afford certain things, I know that you're one of the few public service department heads who was able to get an override or a capital expenditure passed. I think this was back in 2012. Were you able to get $390,000 to purchase and equip a new fire truck? Mm-hmm. Why were you so successful, and how did you appeal to the community?
Well, we were successful by a slim margin, but I think we put a lot of time into it. We tried to educate the citizens. We put out flyers, and we had everybody that had any questions. So, we just tried to educate them on the need and the purpose of it. We did purchase 3 fire trucks at one time back in 1995, which was great then. But you should have some type of plan in place down the road. And, one of the things, mention a plan or a capital plan. I'm one of the few departments that we're always at the Capital Improvement Committee, because we have so much equipment that needs to be replaced. There's never really a year where we can say, well, we don't need anything, because a lot of the things that we utilize to provide our service are very expensive.
And not to mention, especially if you're talking about whether it's ambulances or fire trucks or brush breakers or whatever, a lot of times those are hard miles that those vehicles are utilized. So you may have an ambulance that has 75,000 miles on it, but those are hard miles, aren't they?
Yeah.
And people don't understand that in regards to having to replace it every so often.
We're very fortunate that we have an ambulance account that we generate revenue from. When we take people to the hospital, we get insurance money, and we take that money and we utilize that to offset some of our operational expenses, but we also utilize that to purchase ambulances for cash. In the past, we've leased purchased the ambulance, which obviously with interest, you're paying an extra, $17,000, $18,000. Now, because we've been able to build that account up, we use that to pay cash for the ambulances.
Okay. So as a department head, how and when does the budget process start?
Well, like I said earlier, for me, it's every day. Every single week when I get the bills and the payroll, I look at what we are, what percentage we've spent, where we are. I track my payroll weekly. And again, I'll take that book on July 1st that I make with all my line items. And as soon as I see a bill that went up or was more than they told us that they were going to charge us, I will mark that, and that'll be written in there so when I have to do the next budget. So it's continuous.
And on top of, putting your budget together, then you have to basically meet with the Finance Committee. Mm-hmm. How often do you meet with the Finance Committee during the budget process?
So it depends. It depends on our financial situation. If our financial situation is not in good shape, we might meet several times. Other than that, for the budget process, maybe once or twice.
Okay. Knowing that you share a school district with the town of Whitman, I guess it's, and a lot of other things. How often do you find yourself talking with the chief in Whitman or even neighboring chiefs, just to kind of compare what they're doing?
All the time. The Plymouth County Fire Chiefs are a close-knit group of fire chiefs, and we're always talking and working together and getting ideas from each other.
Okay. And leading into talking about a shared district, we know that there's a shared school district, even though if you look at the high school, I believe the high school is technically in Hanson.
Correct.
The budget process is very interesting, and knowing that the schools take up a larger portion of the town's budget. Give me your thoughts in regards to, maybe it's not necessarily the case of the town of Hanson, but knowing that if there isn't enough funding, that it comes down to where the money that the town has is going. If there's going to be enough for public safety, is there going to be enough for education? Do you feel that the pie is divided evenly, and that a lot of thought process is put into being able to make sure that every department is well represented and not being taken from to supplement another?
Well, I think that the time is definitely put in. I think it just comes down to whether there is enough funding to spread it out adequately. And I know there's different committees that have different inputs, but at the end of the day, it's the people at town meeting or the taxpayers that are going to decide where they want those funds to go.
Okay. Not that this is anything that you have any concern or any input on, but again, knowing that you are a department head in Hanson, and the one thing that I always hear during budget season is revenue. We're always struggling to generate revenue. As a guy who knows the lay of the land, in your opinion, and strictly your opinion, I think you're a Hanson resident, right?
Yep.
Okay, then you're a taxpayer too. Look at that. We're hitting on all cylinders here. Anything you think the town could do to generate more revenue, which could be helpful for your department and other departments?
I just think that Hanson needs to try to get more businesses in. Our commercial base is very low. I believe like 8%. So I think that would help us if we could attract some more businesses in town. I think that would help us out.
Is Main Street, I've always heard Main Street talked and bandied about. I mean, we've got town elections coming up in a few months here, and I'm sure it's going to be one of those things that folks who are running for office will mention is Main Street. Is that a prime location that you think businesses or that the town should look to further develop?
I think it could be, and I believe they've already taken some steps to give people incentives to get a business in there. We have some businesses going up on Liberty Street, but I think that area, I think it could be developed, and I think if it would be done in the right way, that it could attract some businesses that would bring in some revenue.
Okay. So staying on the whole taxpayer thing, as somebody who pays a quarterly bill, Hanson doesn't have the same issue at this moment that Whitman does in regards to a sizable deficit that's going to have to be tackled and discussed. But if there was a budget crisis, do you kind of feel that at this time that there is the proper leadership in place to be able to handle a financial crisis?
Yes, I do. I think that between the department heads, the town administrator, the selectmen, and the finance committee, we all have great relationships, and I think that all of us will work together to do what's in the best interest of the community. I mean, obviously we're going to disagree. I'm an advocate for my department. I'm the fire chief, but I also understand that if we are in a situation where cuts need to be made, that we all need to look at each other and do the cuts that would be in the best interest of the community and what the community could handle.
Okay. Some would say that the South Shore, especially a lot of the smaller communities, take somewhat of a conservative approach when it comes to their finances. Do you feel that helps or hurts a community in regards to how they approach things fiscally?
I think it helps them because I think that when you get put in a situation where you don't have enough funding, that it will help you. When I took over as chief, we went into the recession, and I lost a firefighter. He left, but we never filled the position because there was possibly a layoff, and that was difficult for us to do. But I think that we all worked together and did the best we could. So I think that being through those times, when we talk about my budget, when I formulate my budget, it's not anything frivolous. It's what I think that we need, and that's because that was put in my head back when I started, that you only can ask for what what we can afford and what you really need.
Well, let's say if Jerry Thompson was able to have, let's say that there was a windfall. Let's say that revenues are up. You have there's a forecast of the next couple of years are going to be pretty good. What are some of the things that you'd like to do for your department, or that you'd like to? Would it be a matter of maybe another man per shift? Would it be another piece of equipment? What would be on your top three on your wish list?
So I think that adding another person on each shift would be advantageous for us. Our call volume has increased. However, I would be very reluctant to do it unless I could be assured that it would be sustainable for a long period of time. So that would be something that we need to get to. I also believe that the capital plan has been addressed significantly. We've been very fortunate to get some grants. Like we just got a brush truck that we need to replace, and that's a huge saving to us. Our cost was $9,500 for a $200,000 truck. It's a federal grant. But one of the things that needs to be replaced, like I spoke of earlier, with the 3 trucks being all bought at once, we have a tower truck that's over 25 years old. I don't know if we would get something that big, but I think that we're in for an engine this year that we got through borrowing, and we're getting an ambulance through the ambulance account. So we're in pretty good shape equipment-wise, but that's a big ticket item that if we had some type of windfall would be nice to address.
And it's you mentioned something I think that we should touch upon for a moment, and that is grant funding and being able to have a grant written. Do you feel that if you're going to have to replace a ladder truck like that, that's the way to go? Whether it's on the state or the federal level, or maybe even speaking with some of the legislators to get help down at D.C. when the opportunity arises?
Yeah, we could put in for it. Like I said, we just got the brush truck. Right now we're looking to replace our air packs that we wear. We had to replace the bottles because they were out of date. We're 3 NFPA standards old, but that's on the capital plan for next year. But we put in for a grant this year. So I think that if we're successful in getting those air packs, that might be the next thing that we'll go after, as possibly a ladder truck, which would save the town a significant amount of money.
I think I have to ask you this, and I've tried to ask everybody who sat in your seat the same question. Social media. Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself being active on social media, especially when it comes to town items, or is you more of an observer just to kind of keep up with the times?
I have. We have a fire department social media account, and the firefighters union has one, and we use that to inform the public of different things that we're doing. Today we had one of our lieutenants and our firefighters up at one of the classes at the high school. It's a medical sports medicine class, and we brought up the ambulance to show them how we do care. So we like to put stuff like that out. We like to put out information regarding storms or National Grid or things like that. I do have some personal a Twitter account that I'll put some things on, but I do not like some of the bantering that goes on the social media that has to do with town business and things like that. I think that's unacceptable.
Do you see social media as though, is it helpful, especially again, if there's a need to get pertinent information out? Do you feel that it's helpful, or do you feel that it just kind of is opening a can of worms for folks to kind of, launch into a conversation that may not be filled with the proper or correct information?
No, I think I think from our department accounts, we have to be, it has to be the facts and things like that. I think it's a great tool to inform people of what's going on and possibly, maybe some needs of your department.
Anything I haven't asked you here during our conversation, but you kind of feel is important to better informing, because the idea of the show is to inform folks in regards to your department or the finances, or how you put your budget together and how you coordinate it through, the higher ups in town.
I just like to say that I can speak for my department. We're in a great place right now. We are very fortunate to be where we are, and it took a lot of hard work from a lot of people. We've had different town administrators over the years. We have a town accountant who has done an unbelievable job guiding us in the direction that we need to go. And the finance committee also have been great to work with. I can't say enough about the collaboration. Like I said, we might not all agree all the time, but we all work together for the common goal of providing our services, whether it's myself, the water department, the town clerk, to get where we need to be. And I think that's what's made it easy for me.
Well, I want to thank you for coming in.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you here. And we thank you for tuning in to a program like this as we look to inform and educate folks so they get a better understanding of not only the budget process, but what goes on to be able to, at the end of the day, when you go to town meeting, you have an idea as to the work that has been put into devising a budget and how the folks discuss the needs of the town. If you have any questions in regards to future shows or guests, info@WHCA.tv. And until next time, you've been watching By the Numbers.